So let me introduce myself and let me introduce Bill. My name is Robert Safran. I'm the executive director of the Jewish Entrepreneur. We are free mentoring service. We are one of the organizing sponsors of this event. I'd like to welcome Bill Begal. Bill is going to be giving a talk how to truly be of service and really make a difference, not just today as we adapt to the COVID virus, but every day. Just a quick background on Bill. He's the founder and CEO of Begal Enterprises. He's a former chairman of the Bone Marrow Registry International, and it's its current president. He's the past founder and president of Begal Enterprises Incorporated, which is a nationwide full-service emergency service and restoration company. In addition to giving back in many charitable endeavors, including the Bone Marrow Registry, he also happens to be a mentor for the Jewish Entrepreneur. And does a very excellent job in that fashion. And I'm happy to welcome him for his talk. And I'll leave it over to you at this point, Bill.
Great. Thank you, Robert. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for being patient. I think that example right there shows what being an entrepreneur is about. Tenacity, not giving up, grabbing another laptop, not taking no for an answer, and making it happen. So I want to give you a brief background and bio on myself, how I built a for-profit business, and how I've parlayed that experience into my nonprofit work. 20 years ago, I started a disaster restoration business. I cleaned up fires and floods all over the United States. I grew up a third-generation dry cleaner in the DC area, which is where my business was also based. Basement floods, big building floods, fires, dry cleaning. I realized if I could clean a house, or I could clean someone's shirt, or I could clean their suit, then I could clean the entire home. All fabrics, all styles. We boarded up, we sucked water, we dried, we did the basement of the EPA headquarters, we did big skyscrapers after hurricanes. I mobilized over 150 people after Hurricane Katrina to New Orleans. I loved solving problems. And that's really no different for you and your businesses, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or whether you're a startup, whether you're working out of the garage or whether you are working with a buddy on a Zoom call, making a difference, being of service, making the world a better place. I want to tell you about my friend Jay Feinberg, who at the time in 1994 had an organization called Friends of Jay. He and I are the same age. He tested 60,000 people, 60, in an effort to save his own life. Jay had leukemia, needed a bone marrow transplant because he is of Eastern European Jewish descent. He was not able to have his own match in an existing worldwide registry. There are now 72 of those registries. So his parents and he decided we're going to start testing people. And it wasn't the cheek swab test, which Jay happened to have invented, and I'll talk to you about that later on. It was a blood draw, and people often get squeamish about blood or needles. So 60,000 people wanted to do something better, wanted to help out a stranger. And as those people are donating, other people that are on the wait list are finding matches. So while Jay, over 4 or 5 years, didn't find his match and there was no hope, there were other people that were getting matched. I went to Russia for 6 weeks and I tested 500 local Belarusians in the Minsk part of Russia, and then even further south, the Chernobyl, south of Chernobyl in the Sapatskin region. That's where we found Jay's ancestry. So we went to Grodno, we went to Sapatskin. Think of Anatevka and Fiddler on the Roof. Literally chickens running across the road, women with scarves on and brooms made of twigs to sweep. We found old cemeteries that were Jewish cemeteries that were forgotten about and grown over. The rain, because we're in the Chernobyl region, had etched the markings off the tombstones. So if the tombstone was faced up, you couldn't read the letters. If it was face down, you could get on your hands and knees and look up at the letters. I tested 500 people looking for my friend's match. His match came a few months later as the very last person at the very last drive tested, a lady by the name of Becky, became Jay's miracle match. Jay then chose to not go to law school, but to make his life's work helping people out. We have about 350,000 people in our registry. We have facilitated over 3,200 bone marrow procedures and matches, and those lives are potentially saved. So Jay has literally made the world a better place and has helped over 3,200 people, their families, their children, brothers and sisters have a better shot at life. Jay's family, though, is just another set of mom and dad that wanted to help their son live. But it was a true grassroots effort in order to help save Jay's life. There was no internet. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. It was people telling people. It was picking up the phone that was connected to the wall and making a phone call. Synagogues, churches, community centers, posting flyers, people showing up, people waiting in line patiently to help take a blood draw to see if they would be a match. I want you to think about the problems you may be dealing with in your day-to-day existence. And I would tell you, based on my experience as much in the nonprofit space as the for-profit space, you've got to listen to your client. You've got to listen to your customer. You have to separate yourself from your competition. The cream will always rise to the top. There will always be competition. There will always be people to maybe say not so nice things about you. You can't pay attention to that. Keep your eye on the prize. Listen to what your client needs. Listen to what your customer wants. Truly be of service. Do what other people aren't doing. Trust your gut. You have to be able to pivot. Just like the first 15 minutes of me getting on this call was frustrating. It was a phone call. It was a FaceTime. It was a grabbing another laptop to make it work. Pivot. Don't give up. Push through. Some of the scariest things I've done led to some of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I'll never forget the very first time, not the very first time, one of the first times I was in LA where I started learning about the fire and restoration business after growing up as a third generation dry cleaner. I was on a sales call and it was a big, beautiful home. And there was a tremendous amount of smoke in a very precious library. Think of big, tall mahogany bookcases and brass ladders that rolled maybe 10, 12, 15 feet in the air. This library was insured for millions of dollars specifically because of the first edition books that were in it. And there were other restoration vendors like myself there listening to the owner's spokesperson talking. And he had a Mark Twain first edition in his hand showing what type of books were in this library. Many people were chatting and all sharing what they thought the best way to clean the smoke and the odor from these books was. Now, I put on a pair of gloves and I didn't really say anything. But one of the competitors kind of made fun of me and said, "Oh, he doesn't want to get his hands dirty." And I explained to the owner's representative, it's not that I don't want to get my hands dirty, but our hands produce natural oils. And if I touch the book that has soot on it and then start opening the book and looking and checking its condition, then I'm going to leave my fingerprint in sooty smoke on one of those pages. A quiet voice from behind the crowd spoke, and it was actually the owner, just in a pair of jeans, very simply, and he said, "That's the man I want to hire," and he walked away. Trust your gut. Listen. Use your ears and mouth in the ratio that they were given to you, and know that you're on the path to do the right thing. Competitors were giving me a hard time for putting on gloves. I knew it was the right thing to do. I was awarded the contract because I explained why I was doing what I was doing. I was being of service. I wanted to be different from the competitors. I didn't bring gloves to embarrass anyone. I knew that was the right way to handle books. So think about, in your specific industry, what you have to do to pivot, to be unique, and to truly be of service. And as the title says, not just today with COVID, but every day. Every day. Separate yourselves. This is what Jay Feinberg's done with Gift of Life. He has made it his life's mission to find a bone marrow donor for any and every person that needs it, period, regardless of race, color, and creed. We started off as a primarily Jewish registry because Jay's best chance for a match was from someone with his own similar genetic heritage, Eastern European Jew. But now we have a program where we have over 200 ambassadors that are on campuses all over the United States, helping us diversify our registry, helping us to find matches for anybody that needs one. So think about what in your life or business you wish you were doing similar or better than your competitors. What ideas can you glean and gather from those competitors? What can you do to be of service, to make the world a better place, and to separate yourself? One thing I did in my restoration business was we would board up a house after there was a fire. I was my own first employee. I drove a pickup truck. There was plywood in the back of it. I had a generator. I had tools. And I would go solicit and offer to board up the house after the fire happened. Was I called an ambulance chaser? By many people, yes. The difference between me and an ambulance chaser is that the ambulance chaser may be chasing someone after an accident, and they have to convince you your neck is hurt, or tell you that the insurance company is going to pay to deal with something you may not know what the answer is or isn't yet. I was looking at a home or a business that had a hole in the window, a door that was broken, and it needed to be boarded up. It needed to be cleaned up. Why? There's a liability there. You don't want someone walking in glass and hurting themselves. You don't want to leave a window open due to weather. You don't want pilfering to occur. So often I would get a job to board up that window and to make a job. But then I would offer the family to get clothing from them that was smoky and sooty. And based on my dry cleaning experience, I would clean clothes at night. Sometimes I'd stay up all night, laundering or dry cleaning or deodorizing the clothing, so the family would have fresh, clean clothing to wear at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. No other competitors were doing that. My competition wasn't. I just thought of it. How to separate myself, how to be different, how to be better, how to be more unique, how to really be of service. 10, 11 o'clock at night, Amazon's not going to deliver clean undergarments to you. Jeans, If there were young children in the house, sometimes a stuffed animal. If there were children of school age, I would take their school books and ozone and deodorize them overnight. I wanted to do all I could to let that family be as normal as possible after a tragic and stressful event occurred. That's how I separated myself. That's how I used my experiences to be inventive and to adapt and to truly help people out. See, I had the best job in the world because I got paid to help people when they needed it most, and I got paid with somebody else's money most of the time. Let me say that again. I got paid by somebody else to help somebody after a tragic event happened. It was a privilege and an honor to serve people for over 18 years. It's no different now with Gift of Life. After going to Russia and helping Jay in 1994, I started becoming a courier. I would take bone marrow all over the world. I was the messenger. I was the courier. And then I eventually joined his board, where I was a board member for a few years. And then Jay asked me to be his chairman, where I served him and the board and the organization for 10 years. And as Robert indicated, I'm now the president of the organization. I use my for-profit experience all the time in my nonprofit world. I'm involved in my synagogue's Chaver Kadisha. I'm on the board of a local Jewish day school in Washington, D.C., where I live. I've been asked to join the board of my synagogue. And nonprofits are businesses that have services. The service could be religion. The service could be education. Think about what services you provide, what experiences you have, or if you don't have experiences, those are the people that you want to bring in to help you out, to make you a broader organization. If you don't like spreadsheets, bring in somebody who likes numbers. If you don't like customer service, bring in someone who you feel their presence when you speak to them. You feel the warmth. You feel the smile. Be of service. Figure out what the client needs. Listen. Whenever I would go to business lunches or meetings with people, I was very conscious not to do all the talking. I wouldn't be silent so that there was an awkward silence, but I would let them do most of the talking. Why? When somebody talks about themselves for 20 or 30 minutes, they leave that meeting feeling really good about themselves because they like the subject matter that was discussed at that meeting. Think about how you can listen, ask poignant questions of your customers, and find out how to be different. I'd really like to open it now up for any questions, comments. Let me use my 25 years experience of being in business and being in the nonprofit world to help you be better at what you're doing. Thank you very much. You can type your messages in the chat box right here. And afterwards, someone just FaceTimed me. Sorry about that. And I'm also going to put my email address in the chat box. If anybody else has questions or concerns, you want to discuss something privately, I'm willing to speak directly with you. No questions? So, Robert, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm not getting any questions. Any advice on pricing? So, you have to figure out what it costs you to do whatever you're doing. And also, I'll tell you, Mr. Markowitz, I never give advice. Advice is a projection. I like to give experiences. Anybody can give advice, but if someone tells you what's worked for them and they share a positive experience or even a negative experience, for me, I always enjoyed learning from people that made mistakes because I was less apt to make that mistake because somebody else already has. So, can you tell me what you do? What type of pricing you're looking for? The answer is going to be the same. You have to figure out what it costs you to do X, what a fair profit margin is, and then look at the competitors. Look at what other people are already pricing and charging. Are they using the same materials? Is their labor force more skilled or less skilled? What are you doing differently to justify charging more? I'll tell you, Steinway has a great quote. I'm going to bring it up right now. I liked it so much I added it to my Outlook contacts. Build the best piano possible and sell it at the lowest price, consistent with quality. And I'll say that again. Build the best piano possible and sell it at the lowest price, consistent with quality. So I took that and I adapted. We give exemplary service while providing it at the lowest price, consistent with quality. These prices have been and are as low as possible to stay with exemplary service and quality. So while the money comes into play, show and talk about your service and the quality of your work. Does that help you? Libby, if not, please write back. Ruvain asks, can you relate your experiences onto the COVID crisis and how you've navigated crisis in your business or personal pursuits? So my disaster restoration business was an 18-year crisis of sorts. Every time there was a fire or a flood or a big rain or a hurricane, that creates a crisis. Many people need help, or you get a big job and I have to hire more people. I have to scale up. I have to take all the equipment we have and I have to drive to Miami to board up buildings and clean up after a hurricane, or New Orleans. After Hurricane Katrina, we worked in New Orleans with 150 people until Hurricane Wilma came through southern Florida, where I had another 75 people working, and I commuted between Miami and New Orleans for 3 months. We would always ramp up. For me, I saw it not as a crisis, but problem solving, logistics. Again, being of service to that customer and that client, listening and knowing what they needed, using our experience to help them solve a problem, and knowing that if we didn't do it once we had the opportunity, somebody else would. And I didn't like giving that opportunity to somebody else. So I always saw it as a great opportunity to be of service. I liked the challenge. I liked being able to ramp up equipment and people and do a big job. Or after a heavy weekend of raining, having 50, 60, 100 clients that all had wet basements. So you start working 18 and 20 hours shifts, and you let your employees go home after they work a 20-hour day, and they come back 10, 12, 15 hours later. You buy them food. I always had new socks in the warehouse. And after you've been sucking water out of basements all day, I don't care how waterproof your shoes are, your socks are probably wet. So I would send my employees home with a dry pair of socks. Not expensive, but it was a gesture for me to say, I really appreciate you working hard. Your feet are probably wet and tired and sore. COVID is just another, it is just another, but it's not just another type of crisis. I just got off a board meeting for Gift of Life. Last night I had one for the school board that I'm on. And we're not doing board meetings in person. We're doing them virtually. Everyone's in their own home. Some people have real backgrounds. Some people have virtual backgrounds. We have to pivot. We have to shift. The school still has needs. The school still has board meetings that have to happen. So what's important is life and business continue, but let's adapt. Many of you have your coworkers with you that are probably younger children. You never thought that they'd be on a Zoom call with you, but they are. And I think for me, I see the humanity in that we really are dealing with this and navigating this together. Take a deep breath, be a little more patient. And for me, it comes back to being of service and making a difference. Someone just texted me that they couldn't chat. Let's see. What was my biggest failure and when did you decide to cut your losses and move on? So when was your biggest failure and when did you decide to cut your losses and move on? I had a closet company that I used some of my disaster restoration and carpet cleaning labor for. I don't know if it was my biggest failure, but I saw we weren't making money. I saw the contracts that we were asked to bid on, let's say in the year 2000. I wasn't getting to do that work until 2001, but I was having to do it with the bid from 2000. The materials may have gone up in price. My labor is now more expensive. And because I was one of the last trades in the building, I was often one of the last people to get paid. That wasn't working. I couldn't keep putting money in to that enterprise. So I adjusted the way we did business. I changed the way I accepted contracts. We pivoted by saying we have to have the opportunity to rebid or revisit our existing bid. I can't give a bid in 2000 for work that's going to be done in 2001. That's not going to get paid for 2002. So I don't know if that answers your question. That's one way, Herschel, that we pivoted and we adjusted. I guess if I'm thinking a little more about that, I'm always pivoting and adjusting. Always take stock of what's working, what feels right to you. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. If something is feeling like it's pounding a square peg through a round hole, reevaluate. Robert gave us a warning for any last questions. Are there any further ones? So if you want to swab your cheek, email me. I'll send you a test kit. You can swab your cheek, send it in. If you want to learn more, go to giftoflife.org. How we help every person that needs a bone marrow transplant or stem cell transplant get one. With Gift of Life, this is our busiest month ever. We're doing more transplants and more stem cell donations because many can't be done in hospitals now. And because we have our own apheresis center in an office in Florida that we opened about a year ago, we're able to take much of that overflow and be of service to the worldwide bone marrow community in a way that we never thought we were going to have to be. So think big, think really, really big, how to make a difference, how to be of service, not just today, but every day.